Hi, I'm Arletha Williams, Supply Diversity Program Manager for the Board of Governors of the Federal Reserve System, located in Washington, D.C., and your moderator today. Thank you for joining us and welcome to Meet the Program Manager and the Contract Representative for People, Strategy, and Operations, Executive Coaching, and 360-degree assessments. But before I get into the agenda, I have a few housekeeping rules. If you're watching via cell phone, please make sure your phone is horizontal. Also, we want this webcast to be very interactive for you, so please submit your questions in the chat box. We want you to engage with us, and we will answer all of your questions at the end of the presentation. So, as I mentioned, we have created a very exciting program for you today, and I can't wait for you guys to hear all the wonderful information that Joya and Natasha have put forward for you today. So, today's agenda highlights our people, strategy, and operations, upcoming procurement opportunity, executive coaching, and 360-degree assessments. The purpose of this 1-hour webcast is to provide you access, opportunity, and engagement with the Federal Reserve. Despite the ongoing uncertainties and challenges of COVID-19, the Federal Reserve remains committed to supplier diversity. We seek new and innovative ways to stay connected and engage with small, minority, and women-owned businesses in the board's acquisition process. We look for partners like you to provide us with quality goods and services to support our mission. So, to better understand who we are, what we do, and why we do it, let's watch a short video on what is the Fed.
What is the Fed?
So what is the Fed?
What is the Fed?
What is the Fed?
The Federal Reserve, often referred to as the Fed, is the central bank of the United States.
Congress created the Fed in 1913 to help promote a safe and sound monetary and financial system for our nation.
The Fed includes the Board of Governors in Washington, D.C., which has 7 members, including the chairman and vice chairman.
All of the members of the board are appointed by the President of the United States and confirmed by the United States Senate.
The Fed also includes 12 regional Federal Reserve banks located in cities throughout the country.
The reserve banks serve as the central bank's operating arms and also gather economic information from all over the country
To help the Fed both monitor the economy and get the broad input necessary
To develop and implement effective U.S. monetary policy.
Today, the Fed performs a number of important functions, all with the ultimate goal of promoting a healthy U.S. economy.
One of the Fed's most recognizable functions is conducting U.S. monetary policy,
which involves influencing interest rates and the availability of money and credit in our economy.
Congress has tasked the Fed with implementing monetary policies that promote maximum employment and stable prices.
High levels of employment provide people with more economic opportunities, and stable prices promote growth
By making it easier for households and businesses to plan for the future.
monetary policy decisions at the Fed are made by the Federal Open Market Committee,
which includes all 7 members of the Board of Governors and presidents from the reserve banks.
This committee meets regularly to assess the conditions and outlook for the economy.
In addition to conducting monetary policy, the Federal Reserve also helps to supervise and regulate the nation's banks and works to promote a stable financial system for consumers, communities, and businesses.
The Fed also works with communities, nonprofit organizations, and others across the nation to address housing problems, promote equal access to credit, and advance economic and community development.
The Fed also promotes stability in the financial system, because instability in the financial system can pose a severe threat to the broader economy and to communities across the nation.
The Fed also acts as a bank to other banks by clearing checks, making electronic payments, and providing the currency that Americans need and use every day.
Our nation's economy and financial system face constant challenges.
The Fed is working every day to address those challenges and is committed to helping foster good economic conditions and outcomes. Employment opportunities, stable prices, and financial stability that benefit all Americans.
And we are also the Fed.
To learn more about the Federal Reserve, you'll find a wide range of resources on the Board of Governors website at federalreserve.gov.
Now that you know who we are, what we do, and why we do it, let's talk about the board's executive coaching program. The program is designed to develop and enhance leadership competencies and culture needed to meet specific challenges and business reality. The program provides assistance to our officers and our managers in mastering thought leadership skills. We plan to award multiple basic order agreements. And for those of you who are not familiar with basic order agreements, they are very similar to the federal government's IDIQs. We plan to award the work based on a task-by-task basis. So, we have an amazing panel today, and they will provide you with the mandatory requirements for the solicitation, as well as provide you an overview of the board solicitation offer and award with successful approaches and key strategies when submitting your proposal. And at this time, I would like to introduce our panelists. First, we have Joya Wallace. Joya is our Senior Talent Management Operations Specialist 2. Joya is an amazing supply diversity partner and program manager. Joya, welcome.
Thank you, Marletha. Glad to be here.
Joya, share with the audience your role in the Executive Coaching 360-degree assessment acquisition.
Absolutely. So again, my name is Joya Wallace, and I am the core and program manager for the Executive Coaching and 360-degree assessments. I also deal with the board-wide training programs, and I look forward to working with you on this particular solicitation.
Wonderful. Thank you, Joya. Next, we have Natasha Jones, our very own contract specialist and the supply diversity champion. Once she shares her role, I'm convinced she too will become your rock star. Welcome, Natasha.
Thank you, Marletha. And as you mentioned, yes, I will be the contract specialist and your primary point of contact for all contract-related issues and inquiries for the new Executive Coaching 360-degree assessment solicitation.
Before we get into the presentations, let me revisit the housekeeping rules. And for those of you who are just now joining us, again, welcome. We have a very exciting show lined up for you today. If you are watching via cell phone, please make sure your phone is horizontal, and also please communicate with us through the chat box. All of your questions will be answered at the end of the presentation. So without further ado, I'd like to bring in Joya.
Thank you, Marletha.
Joya, walk us, the audience, through the key and mandatory requirements for the Executive Coaching and 360-degree assessment solicitation.
Absolutely. Next slide, please. So effective communication and self-awareness are important at all levels of the organization. To that end, executive coaching serves as a resource for board leaders to enhance and refine their leadership skills. As leaders move up in the organization, it can be very difficult for them to get authentic and to receive unbiased feedback about their leadership skills and style. Next slide, please. Executive coaching offers board leaders a personalized development opportunity to focus on their leadership goals and development with an external leadership coach. This helps the individual to better understand their personal leadership style, as well as to help them master new attitudes and behaviors. Next slide, please. First of all, let's take a look back. As you may be aware, the board provides a base year and 4 option years on our basic ordering agreements. Previously, we had 16 coaching vendors over the past 5 years. Of those coaching vendors, that represented 120 available coaches. All coaching vendors working with the board had at least one Federal Reserve Board client in 2022. Looking at our 2021 numbers, we had 177 participants, and that was an increase from our 2022 numbers, which was 152. All of our coaching vendors can have up to 10 coaches available for board staff to choose from. Next slide, please. Let's talk about capabilities next. So we are looking for our coaching consultants to be able to assist participants in development planning, to be able to use assessment tools, and to understand how assessment tools can fit into the board's leadership development approach. This will also be able to raise the participants' awareness of themselves and how they show up at work. Next slide, please. Keeping on with our capabilities, we are looking for our coaching partners to be able to actively listen, to ask effective questions, to identify significant patterns of thinking and behaving, to build trusting relationships and rapport with their coaching partner, to challenge and give feedback to their coachees, as well as to establish credibility and authenticity with participants. Next slide, please. So what is it exactly that we are looking for in your statement of work? Let's next talk about mandatory requirements. Our mandatory requirements state that all executive coaching partners must have a minimum of 5 years of coaching experience with senior organizational leaders. In addition to that, we ask that our coaching partners have an advanced degree in organizational development or a related field, or an ICF or equivalent certification. In addition, it is mandatory that our coaching partners provide 3 references for each coach that is being presented as to work on this proposal. These coaches should be able to demonstrate that they have worked with a moderate to large size organization, and we ask that the references indicate work that has been performed within the past 2 years. Next slide, please. Keeping on with our mandatory requirements, we do ask that our coaching partners do have a working knowledge of the framework of adult development, that they can speak to goal development and action planning, team building theories and techniques, learning theories, change management models, and organizational development theories. Next slide, please. Now, in terms of the requirements for our 360-degree assessment administrators, they're the same as what I just mentioned. We're looking for these individuals to actually have the same 5 years of experience with leadership and learning and development. We're also asking that there is an online 360-degree assessment that is compatible with and integrates with the board's infrastructure, as well as being 508 compliant. Next slide, please. As we looked at the board video of who we are and what we do like to see coaching partners that have experience speaking with leaders in a financial institution. That is preferred. It is not necessary. We also would like to see on the 360-degree assessment side that coaching partners have experience with multi-rater assessments. And if you do have experience serving other organizations such as Federal Reserve banks, federal government agencies, or federal financial regulatory agencies, we would like to see this notated in your proposal as well. Next slide, please. Regarding our 360 assessments, I will note that assessment costs and debrief time are not included in the coaching hours. The coaching for these assessments comes out of the division's budget. Each vendor must send a request to the program manager with the assessment name, a description of what the assessment is going to drill down to, as well as the cost and the debrief cost. In certain circumstances, depending upon the number of hours that a particular coachee has, you can use one of those debrief hours that has been allotted to that coachee for this particular purpose. Once I work with the division to ensure that the cost as well as the assessment is going to be covered, then I will notify the vendor that they do have the green light, and I will issue the task order to procurement, who will then issue a mod letter indicating that the work can begin. Next slide, please. Regarding our award qualifications, all technical proposals must include a brief statement from each proposed coach that includes a description of their background, their credentials, their experience, and their style and approach. This information will form the basis for which I actually do my matching with my coachees. So those coach descriptions will also become part of the resume and bios that I send out to our coachees. And I'll get to that in a little bit greater detail as I go through my presentation. Next slide, please. When putting forth your coaching personnel, we do ask that you ensure that they are able to undergo and pass a background investigation that will be processed by the board. Next slide, please. Now, this slide I will spend a little bit more time on, as I know that it's a little bit wordy, and I just want you to understand exactly how our process works here at the board. So there is an allotment of hours that is provided to each coachee, excuse me. From that allotment of hours, the divisions will select coachees. They will go out and ask who is looking for a coach. They do their assessment on how much money they have and who can be part of that coaching process. I then, in turn, will send a welcome email to the coachee and ask them to complete an information sheet. The information sheet will actually be shared with the selected coach, and this is a way for you to get to know your coachee. The information contained on this sheet also helps me in the matching process. The information contained is the individual's name, their title, the division. What is their reason that they'd like to participate in the program? What competencies are they looking to enhance or skill up on? Is it collaborative relationships? Is it decision quality? Is it perspective and strategic agility? Could be a whole host of things. So they will indicate that on this particular form. As I mentioned, I then use this form to go over the resumes of all of the vendors that I have resumes for. I take a look at your resume, your bio, and I basically try to do a keyword search. So if somebody is interested in executive presence, if they're looking to manage conflict, I would be looking within your resume, your bio, to indicate that you have worked with individuals in said areas. Once the coachee has selected their coach, they then send me a message indicating who their selection is. I then turn around and send an email message out to the coach to the coachee outlining next steps, as well as to the coach indicating that they have been selected. And then for those who have not been selected, I do send an email message to them also so that we can tie up any loose ends. Now, with regards to your coaching template, which I just kind of mentioned before, I am looking for a very good resume. As we know, a resume can speak 1,000 words. So in your resume, I'm looking for not only your contact information, your base location, which really is not so important right now because we are operating in a virtual environment, but of more importance would be your business experience. What is your education level? What is your coaching niche? Do you work with senior leaders? Do you work with emerging leaders? Do you help individuals with their self-awareness, with managing conflict, with leading organizational change? Whatever that is for you, I would ask that you put that on your resume/bio. There will also be 3 open-ended questions that are going to be on this resume bio. What kinds of organizations have you worked with in the past? Why would you hire yourself as a coach? This is a time for you to sell yourself. And lastly, how would you assess success? This information, this resume, this bio is shared with the coachees so that they can understand a little bit more about you and as they go into the interview process with you. Now, keeping in mind, I cannot guarantee a minimum number of participants. This is due to retirements. This could be due to people who are moving up due to promotions or what have you, as well as each division's budget. But if you go back to the looking back slide, as you saw last year, we had 177 coaching participants, and we are at that number or a little bit have surpassed that for our 2022 executive coaching numbers. Next slide, please. So in looking at the selection process a little bit further, once the coachee has selected their coach, I will then work with procurement. I am responsible for putting together the task order, and that is then sent over. There is a purchase requisition that is completed, and then the mod letter is sent out by Natasha and her group. Once I see that the mod letter has been sent, that is then my green light to make that introduction between the coach and the coachee, indicating that the engagement can begin. This is at the time that I do send the information sheet that the coachee completed so that you can get to know a little bit about this new person that you will be working with. Now, I am able to allow resuming coaching engagements to start immediately, meaning you do not need to wait for the mod letter to be issued. However, please note that if this is the case, you would have to wait until you do receive receipt of the mod letter in order to invoice us. So with that, I just want to reiterate that I am your coaching partner, your resource as the awards go out. Awardees for this proposal will receive a PowerPoint that not only goes over some of this same information, but it also will go over invoicing. It will go over what does a mod letter look like. It will also show you an example of a task order. So with that, I will turn it back over to Marletha, and thank you so much for your time and attention.
Joya, thank you so very much for that informative presentation. As I mentioned to you earlier, isn't she amazing? Wow, that was so good, Joya, the information that you provided. I know you guys are wondering, are we going to give you the slides? Yes, the slides will be available. So I'll see you the presentation after the event today. Also, you can watch this live webcast again on the board's YouTube channel. We should have it posted probably in the next couple of days if you need to go back and reference the webcast again. But Joya, thank you so very much. And what I can tell you, 3 key takeaways that I heard Joya say is that they want to make sure that the qualified personnel has at least 5 years of experience with credentials and certification. So if your coaches do not have at least 5 years of experience, credentials, and certification, you need not include them in your resumes. Also, we want you to ensure us that you can demonstrate that your firm, your coaches meet all of the mandatory requirements. We want you to meet all of the mandatory requirements. And in addition to that, we want you to be very detailed in your approach. When you respond to the solicitation, and Natasha will go over that with you, we want you to be very detailed. Again, Joya, thank you so much. This was very, very informative. And we just going to think, we'll bring Joya back on later to ask questions. Thank you, Joya.
Thank you.
So now that Joya has given us the key information and requirements on the executive coaching and 360-degree assessments, let's talk a little bit about the board's procurement process. So you saw the Fed video earlier, who we are, what we do, and why we do it. We are an independent federal agency, federal government agency. Our acquisition policies are very similar to the FAR, but we do not follow the FAR, so that's very important to know. Also, you learned through the video that we have 12 reserve banks. Each of those reserve banks procure their own procurements. So if you're interested in doing business with any of the reserve banks, you can go to the board's website, and that information will be available at the end of the presentation. And you can reach out to my counterparts. All of that contact information is on the web page for you to reach out to the reserve banks. But just to talk a little bit about how the board acquires its goods and services, the board acquires its goods and services through a federal government-wide contracts and schedule. And that's for our goods and our non-hourly services. You're probably familiar with GSA and SOUP. We also use a formal bidding process and negotiated procurements. Typically, we are released on a request for quote or an SOA, like we're doing with executive coaching and the 360-degree assessments. And some of you may be wondering, do we advertise? Where can I go find your solicitation? We're interested in doing business with the board. Unlike the other federal agencies, we do not advertise our solicitations. We invite our vendors to participate in our acquisition process. So we ask that you, we build our own bidders list, and as I mentioned, we invite you to participate in the process. With regards to market research, we do our market research from our vendor database. If you have not done so already, please go to the board's website and register your company to do business with us. Because as I mentioned, when we're looking to build our bidders list, our program managers, our contracting officers are doing the market research from the board's very own database. When you go to the website, you will also find a plethora of information regarding the board's acquisition process, including an acquisition plan and forecast that is called Procuring the Future. With Procuring the Future, you will find contact information for our contracting officers. And if you should see an acquisition that your firm meets the capabilities, please reach out to the contracting officer or myself to start the collaboration to learn more about the solicitation. So let's move right into responding to the board solicitation. And as you know, as oftentimes we find that suppliers have time sorting through an RFP, trying to figure out an SOA, and it has become, or it can become very overwhelming for you. So Natasha will walk us through how to respond to a board solicitation offer and award and provide you strategies to help you with tips to be successful when responding to the board solicitation offer and awards. Let's welcome back Natasha.
Thank you, Marletha. I'll start off with the question of the day and an answer that you have all been waiting for. When will the new Executive Coaching 360-degree assessment solicitation hit the market? The answer to that is mid-June 2022. It is on its way.
Oh, Natasha, that's wonderful. So guys, you know, June is just right around the corner. So as Natasha mentioned, we plan to send this out mid-June, and we'll go from there. We'll go from there. Natasha, thank you. So share with the audience, before you get into the presentation, exactly your role with executive coaching and 360-degree assessments.
Okay, well, thank you, Marletha. Again, I am the contract specialist, and I will be your primary point of contact for all contract-related issues.
Okay, great. And as I mentioned earlier, Natasha will walk us through the ABCs of the solicitation. And Natasha, take it away.
Thank you, Marletha. Next slide, please. The solicitation offer and award overview and process. As previously stated, I will be giving you a few key tips on responding to board proposals. Next slide, please. Federal Reserve Board solicitations are similar to other requests for proposals known as RFPs used by FAR-based agencies for the more complex acquisitions of goods and services. The board, however, is not a FAR-based agency. We consider ourselves to be FAR-like, and our solicitations are organized by sections, alphabetically, sections A through M. I'll give you a little bit more information about that as we go on, but some things that this includes are the information sections and background, the statement of work, requirements and specifications, as well as instructions on how to submit and how the board evaluates your proposals. Also our terms and conditions. Next slide, please. The SOA cover page. This page is self-explanatory, and it's something that I will provide to you. And it lists all of our general information about the solicitation, as well as key dates when your questions are due, the deadlines for proposal, inquiries, everything will be on this SOA cover page. Section A, this is the solicitation offer and award form. This will also be provided to you by the contract specialist. In this case, for executive coaching, it will be me. And it's to be completed by you, the offerer. Please sign it and submit it with your proposal. Section B. Section B outlines all of our pricing information, your costs for goods and services, where you will provide me with your hourly rates, as well as rates for 360-degree assessments. Just a note there, 360 assessments are not included in executive coaching hourly rates and must be submitted separately. In Section B, the price section, you'll also find information about the Service Contract Act, if applicable, along with wage requirements. Next section, please. Section C, the statement of work. Here you will find background information, the scope of work, any specific tasks, the place of performance, as well as project meetings. And your proposal must clearly demonstrate your ability to perform the work as described in the SAL. Please pay close attention to the SAL. And if you have any questions, or please feel free to reach out to me. Section D is for warranty information. This section is not applicable to this particular solicitation. However, it's for, it usually contains the warranty duration as well as replacement parts in some of our goods SOAs. Section E is for the redelivery of work, and this is where the program manager inspects and accepts goods or services provided. And if redelivery of work is required, this is the section where you'll find more information about that. Section F is for contract deliverables. This is the section where it will detail insurance certificates, copies of warranties as required. Next slide, please. Section G is for questions. Again, please pay close attention to the deadline for question submission. All questions must be submitted to me in writing. Directly to me, please don't submit them to our supplier diversity specialist, or our program manager, submit them in writing directly to the contract specialist, and I will get a response for you. Please note that responses will be sent to all of the offerers. Section H, contractor personnel. This section identifies the minimum requirements for offerer personnel proposed in key roles and explains the process for substituting key personnel. There's a lot of good information in this section about substitutions in the event that a substitution needs to be made. Next slide, please. Section I, the evaluation and award process. So Section I describes the process as to how your proposal will be evaluated, the evaluation factors from technical to past performance to price. It also details factors used to determine a responsible offerer. And then Section J is for contract administration. So Section J identifies contract type, outlines options, and explains invoicing procedures. Contract management personnel are also identified, and core/program manager roles and responsibilities are explained. Next section, please. Section K, representations and other statements of offer. Each offerer must complete in full and sign and submit with volume 1 of proposal. Section L, general instructions and information. In Section L, you'll have terms and conditions primarily related to proposal development, as well as proposal submission instructions. It also outlines all of the volumes that need to be submitted and how many copies of each volume must be included. Please pay close attention to Section L. Lastly, Section M. And Section M just includes our general contract provisions. You'll find this in every single board SOA. It includes all of our provisions, confidentiality, audits, terminations, disputes, as well as our information security policy. This concludes my presentation. I hope these tips are helpful to you all, and I look forward to seeing all of your proposals. Back to you, Marlita.
Thank you, Natasha. Natasha, again, thank you for walking us through the ABCs of the board solicitation, offer, and award. And as you guys heard, Natasha reiterated that we don't follow the FAR, we're FAR like. So we want you guys to really, really understand how the board procures its goods and services. But one of the things that I heard Natasha talk about was some really key information when you responding to the solicitation. I heard in Section A, while it looks like just a cover page, there are some very, very important dates in the cover page. You don't want to miss the proposal. In the cover page, you will find the proposal date. Circle that, put it on your calendar. Make sure that you don't miss pre-proposals when you're bidding on the board solicitation, offer, and awards. Number 2, with regards to this solicitation, executive coaching, and 360-degree assessment, in Section B, Natasha mentioned that the labor rates for the 360-degree assessments are in addition to. So make sure you pay close attention. Don't miss out on the whole solicitation because you didn't follow instructions. So we just want to reiterate that. So pay very closely attention and see, everybody knows that C, the statement of work, that's a very important part of our solicitation. But all of our alphabets complements one another. We want you to be able to demonstrate the mandatory requirements that are in Section C. You heard that from Joya, you heard that from Natasha, and I'm just reiterating, make sure prior to responding that you have met and can demonstrate the requirements in Section C. And last but not least, I believe in Section G, that's the question and answers. I won't say last but not least, but that's a very important key to our solicitations. As Natasha mentioned, she is your contact. As I mentioned to you earlier, she's your rock star. She's your lifeline to this solicitation. You have questions regarding the solicitation, please email Natasha, not me, not Joya. I know you guys call me all the time, and that's fine. You can still email me, but submit your questions to Natasha regarding this particular solicitation. And once she compose all the question and answers, she will send them out to everybody. But if you would like to learn more about the board's acquisition process, we have a plethora of information on our website, our acquisition policy. Again, we will have the contact information on the screen at the end. So let's bring Joya on and let's go through some question and answers. We have some questions coming in, so we would just get right into them. Let's see. The first question is, will we have an opportunity to conduct a capability briefing to learn more about your pain points? I believe that's Joya. So Joya, Joya, you can answer that, and then I'll piggyback.
Sure, I will do my best to help particularly new vendors understand what the pain points are. I think we do have a well-oiled machine here and it works very, very well. But as a new vendor, of course, responding to this proposal, I will be more than happy to identify any pain points that we have along the way and making sure that there are no hiccups or anything for you as you're responding to the proposal.
And I think just to kind of piggyback off that, since we may have several new vendors interested in doing business with the board with executive coaching, solicitation, Joy and I get together and maybe she can draft what the pain points are, and we can send those out maybe next week. As Natasha mentioned, we plan to send the solicitation out in mid-June. So I don't know if we will have a lot of time to do capability briefings one-on-one with the program manager. While we do pride ourselves with allowing you to meet and talk with our program managers and our contracts officers and contract specialists prior to the solicitation hitting the market, but just based on this tight time frame, I don't think we're going to have time to do individual capability briefings, but we will get the pain points out to you so that that will help you draft your response. Joya, thank you for that. The next question is there a time frame for the upcoming solicitation for executive coaching? As I mentioned, as Natasha mentioned, we plan to send it out in mid-June. I hope that answered your question. Do you utilize 8A Stars 3? We are an 8A Stars 3 prime contractor. With regards to 8A, as I mentioned, we are an independent federal agency. We don't follow the FAR. Unfortunately, we don't participate in the 8A Stars 3. We do support the National 8A Association through outreach, and we find fabulous vendors. So while we don't utilize the 8A Stars 3, you are more than welcome to submit your proposal when we send it out to you. I hope that's helpful. Next question, are SOAs by invitation via email, and are they posted to your website? Natasha, would you like to answer that?
So yes, solicitations are sent via email. We use our board vendor database. So if you're not in that, please sign up and be included. Sign up to be included in the board's vendor database, as well as we have a long list of vendors that we use. So if you would like to be included, by all means, please sign up. Or at the end, you will see my contact information. Please shoot me an email and let me know that you're interested in being included in the solicitation.
And Natasha just really answered this. The next question is, how do you go about getting an invitation to the bid? As she mentioned earlier, we do our market research. from our vendor database. So at the end of the presentation, we will have our contact information listed so you can register your company. And from there, we do our market research, we develop our bidders list, and we invite you to participate in our acquisition process via email. Okay, someone says, thank you for inviting us to this presentation. Greatly appreciated. With 16 vendors, under what circumstances would a vendor serve only one coachee? Joya?
So it really depends upon the bandwidth. And so starting out, one of the most critical tasks that I will do as I'm looking at the coaches and their qualifications and so forth is to go back to the vendor and or the coaches and ask what their particular bandwidth is. We realize that our coaches have thriving businesses elsewhere and that they're not only doing business with the board. And so some of my coaches may only have bandwidth for 3 people. Some may have bandwidth for 15 people. So it really depends on that, as well as the makeup of my coachees and what it is that they're looking for. One important point that I do want to mention is because the board does have 15 different divisions, that it's really like a chess match when I'm making my selections. So for instance, if I'm working with Marlethea and I can't have us having the same coach. So that's why we have to have the strength in numbers. And so you have to be mindful that if I'm in the coaching program and I have another colleague that's in there, I don't want to send them the same set of coaches because there may be some conflict areas or there may be some conflict of interest that may be discussed during the coaching engagement. So it really varies on, as I said, the bandwidth of the coach themselves, and it also varies on what is that coach offering. So when I'm looking at the information sheet and individuals are saying, well, I need somebody that can deal with executive presence. I want to work with somebody that deals with strategic thinking. I want to work with somebody that is good with motivating staff. These are the things in your coaching bio. If I see those and those keywords pop off the paper for me, then you would be a viable coach that I would actually send to that individual. So the more information you can provide to me to help me with that matching, then you're most likely going to be able to receive more than just one coaching partner. I hope that answers the question.
Okay, thank you, Joya. Another question for you, Joya. How many coachees require coaching?
It really depends. And so it depends on the current makeup. It depends on of the board. So we know that there are going to be retirements that are coming on. We also know that we have new hires that are coming to the board as well, depending upon where they are in that trajectory. And if they are raising their hand and they would like a coach, then that's a possibility. As you saw on the looking back slide, last year we had 177 participants. I'm still not quite finished with all of my matching right now for 2022. And so I'm not really quite sure where that number is, but I would venture to say, and I know that Natasha could echo the same sentiments, that we're right around that same amount, about 170, 180 participants. And again, it's really hard to say how many will be raising their hand for 2023, but it also depends upon those retirements and promotions.
Thank you, Joya. I think the next question would be for Natasha. What are the terms of the contract that may be awarded? What's the contract terms of the contract?
The contract terms?
It said, what's the terms, meaning, I think Joya mentioned earlier, 1 year with 4 options, I believe.
Oh, yes, it is a base year and 4 options.
The period of performance, basically.
The period of performance, yes, is a 1 base year and 4 option years. So starting January 1st, 2023.
Yes, and the next question is, what is Natasha's contact information? We will have that for you at the end of the slides, at the end of the presentation. And it says, our company is providing coaching services for Chicago FRB. Can the company qualify instead of a coach? Joya, I'm going to repeat that. If you guys want to clarify that question, our company is currently providing coaching services for Chicago. Can the company qualify instead of a coach? I'm gonna jump in and kind of answer that question. Basically, since we procure separately from our reserve banks, your company will have to respond to the solicitation, and you can have a contract with the Federal Reserve Board in addition to the Federal Reserve in Chicago. We do piggyback often, sometimes on our national procurement contracts, but since the Reserve Bank of Chicago is not a national contract, we will not be able to piggyback off that contract. You would need to respond to the new solicitation when we send it out. Let's see, next question. If I have a strategic partner that is typically, but not always, a prime, and I would typically work as the second, I believe they meant sub, would it be acceptable to include the company in this invitation? And I'll answer that. That would be yes. If you have a strategic partner that you would like to partner with, absolutely, we will. It's okay with us to do that. Unless, Joy, you tell me something different here.
No, I think that is in your wheelhouse, and I'm pretty sure Natasha would agree with your comment there.
Yes. Okay. Another question. Would you be able to share some of the past, present coaching needs as shared by the coachees?
Sure. So I think I kind of mentioned some of that. So the information sheet that each new coachee would be completing, it can range from, it can be senior leaders, it can be emerging leaders. And so depending upon what areas of expertise they're looking for, it could be, I need to know how to motivate staff. I need some team building experience. I need to know how to problem solve. It could range from negotiate, like dealing with conflict resolution, work-life balance, time management. As we know, as leaders grow up and you're in a whole bunch of meetings, how do I now manage my time? How do I delegate? So these are just some of the common areas that many emerging and senior leaders often come and raise their hand for executive coaching to kind of help guide them along the way in terms of their strategic thinking, their learning agility, their executive presence. Sometimes it could be even presentation skills. Some people are fearful speaking in front of a group. So you can see a whole host of different areas where individuals may be coming in terms of making an impact in their divisions, whether it's influencing without direct authority or whether it is indeed influencing. How do I go about doing that?
Okay, great. Thank you, Julia. The next question is for Natasha. What contract vehicles do the board use?
We typically use government-wide contracts like GSA, SOUP for goods and services. However, for this effort, it will be an independent board effort.
Thank you. Joya, the next two questions are for you. The question is, will the program manager provide feedback regarding what went into the decision of selecting a coach? And the next question is, will the program manager notify the coaches within a few days regarding the selection? What's your process?
Alrighty, so if I have the information regarding what went into the decision, I will share that information. If a coach was contacted and they were not selected, you will always hear from me to know that the individual selected somebody else. Oftentimes, however, while I will receive a notification that a coach has been selected, they don't often tell me what went into that decision-making process. A lot of the times it's just a better rapport, a better vibe with somebody, and they really can't put their finger on it. But when I do have that information, I do share that with the coaches so that they are aware.
Thank you.
And I'm sorry, could you repeat the second question for me, Marletha?
Let me see. The second question was, let's see what I do with that. Okay. The second question was, will the program manager notify the coaches within a few days of the selection?
Absolutely. So I don't know if there's, I work tirelessly, as you can, having 177 coaching participants last year. Sending out emails is very, very critical in order for me to stay on top of everything that is going on and manage my spreadsheets and who's going here, who did I send this person to. So I definitely will notify coaches of selections. A lot of times you will find that I'm working late into the evening. So when I know, you absolutely know. And as I said earlier during my presentation, you will then have that information. It does take a couple of weeks in order for that coaching engagement to begin, because then there is the back office paperwork that needs to be completed, such as the task order, and then the purchase requisition, and then the mod letter is sent out. So short answer is yes. Yes, a couple of days, but often within 24 hours, you will know if you were selected once I do hear back from the coachee.
We have 2 more questions, and these will be our final questions. Joya, these are for you. What is the interview process for the coachees?
So I don't do an interview process with the coachees. The coachees are selected by the divisions themselves. And so that looks a little bit differently within the 15 different divisions. So there are certain criteria. What I will say is that the executive coaching program is not a performance management program. So if you're not doing well in your job or so forth, this is not what executive coaching is for. This is for our emerging leaders, for our senior leaders that are looking to assess and be more self-aware of how they show up day to day.
Okay, great. And the final question was to Natasha, and I think Natasha has answered. I think Natasha has answered this question 3 times. How they want to know the period of performance for the contract. It's 1 year with 4 option years.
Yes.
Okay. Yes.
Beginning January 1st, 2023.
Yes. And Natasha, plan on having these contracts awarded prior to December 2022, correct, Natasha?
Yes.
Okay,
Prior
wonderful.
to the ending of the current contract. Yes.
Yes. So Natasha, your final words to the participants today regarding the executive coaching, your final words to them.
My final words, please pay attention to those key requirements. Ask any questions by the proposal inquiry deadline. And again, if you need anything, reach out to me.
Wonderful. Joya, I'm sorry, Natasha. I'm sorry.
I was just saying, I just look forward to seeing everyone's proposals and working with you all going forward.
Wonderful. Thank you. Thank you so very much. Joya, I'm giving you the magic wand. What are you going to give to the audience today with your magic wand?
Well, it's really nothing different than what Natasha has spoken about. And so in order to be awarded a contract, we do need you to pay attention to everything that Natasha talked about, because if you don't get past Natasha, you won't get to me. So she won't pass the proposals, probably will not make it into my purview for my review along with my team. So my magic wand is to reach out to Natasha. She is your rock star. She will help you along the process. And we want to see good proposals. We want to ensure that you do meet the minimum requirements, that you meet the mandatory requirements, and a base year plus 4 option years. We have a lot of time to work together from 2023 to 2027. So it is a lot of work, but it will be rewarding work for you if you put in the time and effort up front.
Wonderful. Thank you again to this amazing panel for a fantastic job today. And I hope to you, the audience, that this webcast has been very informative. And to be successful in the bidding process, I encourage you to follow the steps that Natasha has recommended. And to help you be successful in responding to this solicitation, We will send you the presentation. We will put this webcast out on the board's YouTube channel, and Joya will identify what those pain points are, and we will get that information to you as well. And my closing remarks to you, and as I mentioned to you earlier, the Federal Reserve is committed to supplier diversity. We want you to be successful in winning contracts, not only with the board, but with the entire Federal Reserve System. Because when you win contracts, you create jobs. You create jobs within our communities, where you live, and the communities we serve. And by doing so, you promote a healthy U.S. economy and a healthy U.S. financial system. And again, thank you for joining us. And as we forward focus, we are focusing on returning to in-person vendor outreach events. But until then, stay safe and have a good evening. And thank you for joining us.